Well, hey, everybody. Happy Sunday. Getting ready to record Mike in the Midwest, our Patreon show. So let's do it. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 244 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, which you can find at beourguestpodcast.com. But you know that because you're a super fan of the show and you are one of the folks that keeps the show going. So a huge pat on the back. Thank you to you. And I hope you're having a super weekend here as we have turned the calendar into the month of May. Can you believe it? And I'll tell you what, it's been wet here in the Midwest, in the St. Louis area. Of course, I'm about 25 miles west of the Arch. If you know what St. Louis is known for, we're pretty much known for the St. Louis Cardinals and the Arch. If you've ever flown into St. Louis, you look down, you see the river, you see the baseball stadium, and you see the Arch. Looks a lot bigger when you're on the ground, but you can see the Arch from the air. And yeah, it's been super wet. We had our wettest April ever. It just rained and rained and rained, and it's rained here at the beginning of May. But today, I think it might dry out a little bit. So fingers crossed. But I mean, it has been a soaker here in the Midwest lately. So hopefully you're having a better day. I saw Jason posting over in the Discord, over in the Be Our Guest Podcast Clubhouse. He was headed over to the studios this morning to get his hands on some of that limited edition May the 4th merch. And it looked like it was pouring over at Walt Disney World. Of course, Jason lives, right across the way there in Celebration. And so it looks like to be a super soaker at Walt Disney World today as well. So I think everybody's getting some rain, but I know they needed it down in Orlando, so that's kind of good for them. It's been bone dry down there for the last couple of months, so they need it. So that's good. We don't. I'll tell you what, it's been wild around here. I don't know where it's been around where you, but like it rains where we are, and then it'll rain like all day, and then it'll stop and get the sun will pop out and it'll get hot. And our grass is just like out of control. So, but like the thing is, it doesn't go long enough to dry out to where we can mow the grass. And so everybody here, I think it was, when was it? It was, so today's Sunday. It must have been Friday evening. Yes, it was Friday evening where there was a window where everybody had made this decision where it had stopped raining for long enough that we thought that it had dried out long enough that everybody could get on their mowers and not sink into the grass too much and leave ruts, because you want your the HOA is going to get on you if your grass gets too out of control. And everybody's lawns were super tall in our subdivision. And but I mean, you couldn't help it because like it would rain and then it would stop, the sun would come out, the grass would grow. And everybody around here has puts fertilizer on their grass, and that just made it even worse this time of year. It's wild. So anyway, hope you're doing better. Hope the lawn's going well. Yes, I'm an old dude worried about the lawn, but I'm telling you what, our backyard is rocking. We cut it Friday night, and you could chip and putt on our backyard. It looks great right now because I mean, we got all the rain. I mean, it's so irrigated right now and it's mowed and everything. I'm looking out the window right here. We got right now. I see like 7 birds, like they're eating something. I guess they're picking the worms out of the grass. I don't know. A hummingbird feeder is right outside the window here at the BRGS Podcast Studios, loaded with all the nectar. Have not seen one hummingbird make it here yet. Still waiting the first hummingbird of the season. So they have not made it to St. Peters, Missouri yet. That's one of my favorite things. I love when the hummingbirds come through and I get to see them when I'm working in the day. Patiently waiting. They'll get here soon, but none yet. The nectar is waiting. So if you see a hummingbird, send them my way because I love seeing them as I work. Anyway, I hope you're having a great weekend. Hopefully the weather's great. Hopefully everybody's having a great prom season. I know that folks are still going to prom. Graduations. I have seen a lot of folks posting graduations, universities and so forth on Facebook. Congratulations if you have somebody doing that. We're super proud of you. I got an awesome email this morning from my friend Mel down in Australia. I was thinking about this the other day as I was posting on the Discord. how blessed are we to have a community that we have around our podcast? I talk about this a lot, but I mean, it still blows me away all the time that I can frequently talk to people that are here in St. Louis. We have friends in the Discord that are in Alton, Illinois, which is right across the river from St. Louis. That's where my great grandparents lived. I spent a lot of time in Alton, Illinois. It's where the Alton Giant was from. He was friends with my grandpa. My grandpa on my mom's side, he lived on the same street as my grandpa. They knew each other, Robert Wadlow. But that's, a St. Louis connection. But, so that's close. But I mean, I frequently communicate in the clubhouse with folks in Scotland and Ireland and England and Australia, and all over the world, Japan. And it's so wild to me because I was a person who grew up in Missouri and I've never left Missouri. Where I was born is the hospital where I was born is 20 miles away from where I live right now. And I have lived within 20 miles of that area my entire life. Like if you put the hospital where I was born, Missouri Baptist Hospital, which Dennis will know where this is, and maybe some people are from St. Louis, corner of Interstate 40, I-40 64 and 270, town and country, Missouri. If you put like a dot there and draw a radius, I'm probably 20 miles from that hospital right now. But where I grew up in Florissant was probably 20 miles north. I'm 20 miles west of it right now, like for radius. And it's wild because, my world's not huge. And I'm totally content with it. I love where I live. I love Missouri. I love the Midwestern lifestyle. This is where I was meant to be. But my world would be so small other than this podcast, getting to have friends that I, talk to, and, I've got to speak with, like, for example, Lewis came on the podcast this past week and we talked about, his transatlantic cruise and his lifestyle over in UK and all that stuff, and got to hear about that. That's awesome. People stayed up in the middle of the night to talk to me. That is so kind, right? I mean, that's a crazy thing. I've had, like folks like Mel talk to me. It's the next day in Australia. The kindness of our community that stay up, call in late. Mohawk calls in late on the podcast sometimes. Simon has called in late over in the UK when they have bank holidays, and I think one's today or tomorrow. Folks around the States, I just want to say thanks for being part of our community. It's awesome. And it expands my world tremendously. And I was thinking about that this morning as I was walking on the treadmill and watching Star Wars. And we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's really cool. Sorry, I was just walking Riley and now I'm about to sneeze because the allergies are out of control because it did stop raining and now everything's with the pollen. So wanted to say that. Shout out to Margie over on YouTube, and glad you're tuned in and appreciate that. So now, what else is going on? So last week we talked about, speaking of this, sorry about that. Speaking of this, last week's show was about kind of a smaller version of what we have now. When I was in elementary school and middle school, I had the Far Side BBS, which was basically, I had my Commodore 64, which was one of the first computers, and I had a bunch of disk drives. And you could run a program. Now, remember, you couldn't multitask on these computers in the 80s. So if you ran a BBS, it was dedicated to that all the time. You couldn't play games on it then because it would only do this thing. And so I had in my bedroom where I had it set up, my Commodore 60. Now, here's the thing. I got a second Commodore 64. I was kind of spoiled, but this is the only thing I ever asked for a birthday or Christmas. I was a nerdy kid. And I realized that my dad and I were so much alike that he was into this stuff. And this is why I had it, because my dad played all the stuff that I did. So he got me a second Commodore 64 that we shared, and we played all the games on together. So basically when he got it for me, he got it for him, but we shared it. Anyway, my first Commodore 64 I set up as BBS. So I had the computer hooked up with a couple of extra disk drives, and it stayed on 24/7. First, I didn't have my own phone line for it, so it was only up at night, like from 9 p.m. to like 6 a.m. because it was hooked up to a regular phone line. Then my dad got me my own phone line, so it could be up 24 hours. And people could call in, and basically it was a message board, but you could exchange software on it too. Not really legal, but you could upload and download software. And it became one of the best BBSs in the St. Louis area. Basically, what happened was you dialed in, only one person could be on it at a time. And when somebody would hang up, because it'd be busy if somebody was on it. And then when somebody would hang up, the phone line wasn't busy, you could go on and you could leave messages for people, private messages. It was kind of like email, but it was like just like private messaging. And you went into the message boards. There was a sports message board. It was very much like the Discord. It was like the Clubhouse, but way before its time. And I remember how happy I would be because like I could walk by and see like who was on. I could chat with them if they were on at the time. And even when I was laying in bed at night, because I turned the because running on a TV, not a monitor. I didn't have a monitor. I had a TV that I'd flip the channel 3. And I could see like what people were doing. But of course, at night when I went to bed, I'd turn the TV off, but I could hear the disk drive when they were on, and it'd be like, and I could tell what part of the BBS they were on, where they're downloading games, or I had online games you could play like Trade Wars and Pigskin Pick'em, where during football season, you could like make your picks of all the football games. We see who did the best each week. But, if you're posting messages or just reading messages, I could tell by the headers how the head was hitting on the disk drive because I had it up for years and years. I could just hear it. And when I'd hear those disk drives running, it just was like comfortable sound that somebody was on our boards participating in our community. And I love it. And so now with the Clubhouse, I have the alerts going all the time. So I hear the do, 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 anytime somebody posts. And what that is to me, that takes me back to like my 10-year-old self with the disk drives banging. Because it happens all the time because I have my phone hooked up to like I have the app on my phone. It's like when we're driving to Texas Roadhouse last night, I have my music playing in the car with Pam. It's hooked up to her. We're in her car, but I'm playing my music through my phone in her car. We're listening to some playlist, and you hear boop, 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 boop. And, of course, it ducks the music down every time for like 1 second. And she's like, well, what's all that? And I'm like, well, people are posting in the Clubhouse. People are posting on the Discord server. And she's like, well, why is it so busy? I'm like, oh, something must have happened. Somebody must have either posted a funny meme or there must be some Disney news or something's happening, with sports, like maybe the Kentucky Derby has happened because we have a sports board, the sports channel. And I just love it. It makes me so happy because our community is coming together. It takes me back to my 10-year-old self. So I love that connection. That makes me so happy. And did you guys all participate and make this happen is just awesome. That we can get together and just make real friendships. It's awesome. So I hope you always enjoy the shows. And that's why I like to have the consistency of the shows. I don't want to have a gap there where like, where's the show? I always want to have the show there. So it's like an old friend. I know not every show is a home run. I know a lot of these shows are singles or maybe bunts or foul balls. You can't have a home run every time. You can't even have a hit every time. And I know you're not going to get to the end of every show, but I'm going to try to give my best effort every show and give you something that's worth listening to. All right, so let's get the feedback from last week's show about the Clubhouse and the Far Side. And Brenton, who I appreciate Brenton so much, posting those pictures up in the Pacific Northwest. Again, here's a prime example. Never been to that part of the world. Never been. But I love seeing the Space Needle and all the great photos over there. He posts all the time. I'm learning so much about that. It says, finally subscribe to the Patreon. First episode I've listened to on the train from Seattle to Portland right now. And just said out loud, that's so awesome. When you were describing your BBS setup, really cool. I appreciate that. So see, again, I love it because I see, Brenton posting these things in the Clubhouse. I learn a ton because I've never been, and I'm telling you what, I've heard is they got good coffee. I don't drink coffee and it rains a lot. Not a huge fan of the rain, but it is gorgeous up there with all the green, and I'd like to get up there someday. I think Crater Lake National Park's up there. I want to get up there. Yes, definitely. Trisha, who we're going to be bowling with at Splitsville, I think on July 5th at some point. We're putting that together over in the Clubhouse for the day before the cruise. I'm going to have to get out there and practice because you know me, I don't like to get shown up. So I'm going to have to go to the bowling alley here in St. Louis prior to that. Is it weird that I got excited when you were talking about your hospital diets? Not that I ever want anyone from the community in the hospital, but you were speaking my language. I live this every day, so I see the relief on patients' faces when the tube is removed. So glad you're feeling better. Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't even want to think about that again. That was brutal. That was so brutal. Yeah, clear liquid diet. I never want to hear those three words again. Clear liquid diet. Oh my God. But when he said, okay, yeah, first of all, when they said they're taking the tube out, that was the happiest thing ever. And then I thought, oh my God, this is gonna hurt. It's gotta hurt. It hurt like crap going in. And then I thought, holy God, this is gonna hurt coming out. But then I was like, well, I mean, logical step is it has to come out, right? So let's do this, I guess. I mean, it's gonna I thought, holy God, this is not gonna be good. And I asked him, I said, this is gonna hurt coming out. And because it was his male nurse guy that was pretty funny. His name was Jeff. He was there for like 3 of the days I was there. I liked him a lot. He's like, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's gonna hurt. I was like, oh, I appreciate your honesty, dude. He's like, but do you want it in for the rest of your life? I'm like, dude, let's do this. I'm like, I'm just gonna grab. So he's like, just grab. He said, grab the rail. He said, and I'm gonna count. And he's like, and you're just gonna, I think blow or something. I don't even know what I did, but I was just like, we're just gonna. He's like, it's gonna be like 5 seconds. He's like, I swear, when he pulled that thing, like it was like I swear it was like a 10-foot rope. Like I was like, what? I was like, how far is this thing coming from? Because he was like, I was like, holy crap, is that thing not out yet? I was like, dog, is that thing coming from my ankle? But he finally got it out. Oh my God, that was the best thing ever. But I was like, oh, you don't want one of those. I told him, I was like, oh my God, dude, please, let's don't do that again. Let's please. Anyway, back to Trisha. I didn't have a ton of exposure with message boards. They were on their way out when I got to in age that this would be an interest for me. I love the Discord. It's organized in a way that makes it usable and generates great discussion. I'm so happy to be a part of this community. And again, shout out to Trisha. She's one of the OGs that got this rolling when it just sat there for the first couple of years. She was there. I didn't even know what was going on with it. And Billy Bean says, hope you continue to feel better and better. I had to laugh because it sounded like you were ordering food at the hospital, like you were a Palo brunch. Yeah. Well, the last order I did, I mean, when I got to the thing where they said you have to eat X amount so you can go home for Easter on Easter Sunday, 2 weeks ago today, they're like, you guys show that you can eat. I was like, okay, dog, it's on. Okay. How about the quesadilla? Cheese quesadilla? Can I add chicken to that? Yes. Would you like sour cream? Check. I can do sour cream. I mean, what do you want to show? Yeah, I can show you that I could eat everything. I mean, especially if it's a quesadilla. Come on now. I could give me the Ramon's platter. We went to this new Mexican place a week, not last night, but a week ago, Saturday night. We found this new Mexican place, because we always go to Mexican on Wednesdays and Fridays. But I told Pam last Saturday night, I said, I kind of want Mexican again. Imagine that. I eat Mexican all the time. And so we found another Mexican place kind of about 10 minutes from our house. And it's called like Tequila and something. But it was super good. It was like real authentic Mexican. And so I didn't know what to get there because the deal was to get Pam to go. I said, we won't get fajitas because we always get fajitas at El Azteca. I said, we're going to go there, but we're not going to get fajitas. We'll get something totally different. So it's not like our fajita night. And so we go there. And so I'm like because I always get fajitas, right? So I'm like, what am I going to get? So I'm looking around on the menu. And of course, Mexican restaurants have like 1,000 things to order. But basically, there's a lot of the same things, just different kind of combinations, right? A lot of times I go for like carne asada. The doctor told me that I need to, because I have really low iron because of my anemia, eat a lot of red meat. That helps with your red blood cells and stuff like that. Anyway, I didn't know what to get, and I was super hungry that day because I'd done like 22 miles or something. I was starving. So I found this thing called it was like the Fiesta meal for like $16.95 or something. And I was super hungry. So it had like 5 things plus, it had like 5 things plus, rice and beans. I was like, sign me up. I can't believe it. Had like a chalupa, tostada, a burrito, an enchilada, and a taco or something. They bring this thing out. It's on 2 plates. I mean, 2 plates. And so it's so embarrassing, right? Because like they bring it out and they put it in front of you. And I mean, it's like people are looking at me like, this cat ordered 2 plates worth of food. And plus you got the basket of chips there. We ordered guac with the chips for the appetizer, right? We had the salsa there. I mean, it looked like, dude, did you order your own buffet? I'm so embarrassed. But you know what? I ate it all because it was so good. But that whole night I was done. I was so done. The rest of that night I was toast. But I knew where I was going with this. But yeah, it was crazy. So yes, Billy, it was nuts. And shout out to Mohawk, who's joined us here over on YouTube, found us. I was just speaking about you just a second ago. So there you go. All right. So let's get to today's topic because it's a mini show and I've already gone too long. But today's May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you. And I just want to talk about, because this morning because Sunday's my walk day, Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday are my walk days. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday are my run days. So on my run days, I listen to podcasts while I run. And on the other days, I take my iPad and I mess around. Sometimes I just read Twitter and, Apple News and whatever, Clubhouse. But today I watched Revenge of the Sith because it's May the 4th, right? And I started watching A New Hope. So I thought about this, right? Star Wars, boom, 1977. And I was born in 1973. So Star Wars has been around basically my whole life. Now, I'll tell you what, I did not see Star Wars in the movie theater. The first Star Wars movie I saw in the theaters was Return of the Jedi. So I was kind of late to the whole thing. I'll tell you where I first saw Star Wars. Funny story. I'm just gonna tell a few Star Wars stories real quick, just that relate to me, and then I want to hear your Star Wars stories to share next week. And that's kind of what we're gonna do tonight on the live show if you want to call in, because it's May the 4th. Plus, I'll be a little distracted tonight. The Blues are playing a game 7 against the Winnipeg Jets to move on in the Stanley Cup playoffs at the exact same time the show starts, 6:00 Central. So I'll be doing the show. Not going to miss a show, but it will be on in the background. So a little stressful. Anyway, back to the topic. I first saw Star Wars, the entire movie. I think it was like on an Easter or something. Here's how I remember it. My whole family was over at my grandma and grandpa's house. Okay. Now this was like at an Easter or something. It was a family celebration. It was a holiday. And it was nice out. So I want to say it had to have been like Easter, because we didn't do the 4th of July there. Pretty sure it was Easter. Anyway, it was my mom's parents. And my mom's parents lived right around the block from our house. I mean, just the next street over. So what I did a lot of times is I would just ride my bike over there, so that after a while, if I got bored, which, when you're like 8, 7, you get bored. And I would just ride my bike back home to play with my buddy Ryan, who lived across the street. So anyway, we ate dinner, we did our thing. I spent my obligatory time with the family. And I remember riding home, going home. I was like probably 8 or so, 9, and went into the house and started watching TV. Now, we had cable at the time, but we did not have any movie channels. But I want to say that there was like a preview or something on, like where you get the free movie channels for the weekend or something, and Star Wars was on. And it was a big deal. And my buddy Ryan told me about it. So we went in, we watched it, and I just remember I got scared to death. Couple scenes still stick with me. The sand people freak me out. In that scene where Luke goes back to like the igloo or whatever and finds Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and they're like skeletons because they're burned out. Dude, I was home by myself watching this, young kid, freaked out by all this. So like I was scared to death. So, but I mean, the thing is, like, it's such a fantastical world, right? You got Vader, you got these stormtroopers, you got spaceships, you got, droids, you have lightsabers, you have good and evil. What a fantastical world. So also think about this. I was thinking about this too on the treadmill. There's so much you can do. I mean, Dennis he's doing a podcast for a decade or more about this, and I'm trying to do it in 10 minutes. But there's so much in the Star Wars movies that for people of my generation, of my age, that you heard about. You just heard a snippet about it in the original trilogy. And then your mind develop the story behind it. You never got the details. Like in the original movies, you would hear about Jabba the Hutt and you would imagine his backstory, what he looked like for years because you didn't know, but you thought, or you heard about the Kessel Run, or you heard about these characters one or two times, but you never saw them until like the 1990s. So you were an adult, maybe you had kids or you were in college and like, oh my God, that's when your mind was blown. Cause like this morning when I watched Revenge of the Sith, I'm thinking, when you saw Anakin turn to Vader, you're thinking, oh my gosh, like as a kid, you knew that Darth Vader was Anakin, right? You knew that. You knew like, okay, Darth Vader at some point had turned and he was a Jedi. But like as a kid, you debated this. Like I debated this with Ryan, like my best buddy across the street, and we'd played it up. We had fake lightsabers. Basically, we had wiffle ball bats, right? And we'd battle with wiffle ball bats, and he was Vader and I was Luke and or Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we'd whack each other with wiffle ball bats, and that's how we played. And he even I remember he had a stormtrooper gun that was like looked like a stormtrooper gun. It was so cool. But the thing was, like you had to use your imagination so much back in those days, but like they would drop little nuggets in the movies of the original trilogy, but you never got the details. You never got visuals of them. And I think in a way for our generation, and I'm not saying our generation was the best, but it forced us to use our imaginations to fill in the blanks. And I think that's why, getting to something kind of cool, when a place like Galaxy's Edge was built, that September of like 2019, when you first got to walk into that land at Hollywood Studios or maybe out in Disneyland, and folks like me that were in their 40s got to walk up on a full scale Millennium Falcon, you're just like, oh, no way. Because that's what we dreamed about. Like that was on. Still, when I walk past the Millennium Falcon at the studios, I'm just like, that is unbelievable. Like the detail on it. And because you dreamed about that as a 7-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, and it's unbelievable. So I like that in my childhood, we didn't have all the answers. We debated that stuff at school. We imagined that stuff every night as we fell asleep. Like, what was Jabba like? They talked about Jabba's palace. What? We didn't know that until like, Return of the Jedi. We finally got some details. And then we imagined, okay, what did it look like when Anakin turned to Vader? We never knew until, Revenge of the Sith, until episode 3 came out. We had it in our mind's eye. We had something a little different than they gave us the detail. They showed it to us. But I like that we had to imagine it for years and years and years. Anyway, some of the other things, we had like Star Wars weekends. Star Wars weekends at Walt Disney World were so fun when you got to see the actors that brought Star Wars to life. Peter Mayhew would parade down Hollywood Boulevard in a car. And you got to see like who brought Chewbacca to life. You could go up and meet the character, get autographs from the folks who brought the stories to life. Billy D. Williams, one of the coolest cats in the galaxy. I mean, Lando Calrissian with the cape. I mean, just coolness personified in the galaxy. We had the Star Wars races, the dark side, at Walt Disney World, the light side at Disneyland. And you could do the Kessel Run and, complete the challenges and stuff like that you could be a part of. Yeah, I never did the ones in Disneyland, but I sure did them out at Walt Disney World, and they had awesome medals, stormtroopers on the courses, the cosplayers, great medals, great shirts, just so much fun. Yeah, and even here in the studio, I have my poster. You can't see it; it's off camera a little bit. But my first anniversary present from my wife, because your first anniversary present is paper, and it's right there. It's from Star Wars Weekends 2007. And it's framed right there, and it's always going to be a treasure because we got married in 2006. We went down on a trip in 2007, and Pam got me that poster. It's the original Star Wars poster, but instead of the characters, it's got the characters, but Mickey's in there instead of Luke. I love that poster from Star Wars Weekends 2007. It's so cool. You had, the Galactic Star Cruiser a great attempt for an experience that was so immersive. Came and went, it didn't go well. We have, Galaxy's Edge. We have great, attractions you can experience firsthand. Rise of Resistance is amazing. Of course, it's, not, it's ironic that today's May the 4th and it's down currently on May the 4th. That's a bad look, Disney. You should have that thing working on May the 4th. But, it's a great, great attraction. So Smuggler's Run, it's okay. But Millennium Falcon sitting there is even better, I think. It's but just like John Williams music. I mean, if you took John Williams music out of Star Wars, it wouldn't be Star Wars. Like I was thinking about that today as I was watching, especially at the beginning of A New Hope. I mean, if that soundtrack wasn't there, that movie wouldn't be there. It's just amazing. It's so emotional because as I was watching Revenge of the Sith too, you have like Leia's theme because this because like at this point, if you're a Star Wars fan, like you've seen the movies a million times, oh, well, Leia was just born. They're playing softly. They're playing Leia's theme in the background. Oh, Luke, they're showing Luke get handed over to the family. That's Luke's theme, with the binary sunset. And then when I saw that, I'm thinking, because there's so many emotional connections to the Star Wars movies that everybody has their own personal story, right? So one that I saw, like when I'll give you two examples. When at the end of Revenge of the Sith, when Luke's getting handed over to his family on Tatooine, the baby Luke, they show the binary sunset, and they used a picture of the binary sunset in my science book in 4th grade. They used 2 Star Wars pictures in my science book in 4th grade. One of them was the binary sunset, and one was a picture from Empire Strikes Back, where at the very end of the movie, Luke and Leia are standing in the hospital frigate looking out into space as the Millennium Falcon flies away, and you see a spiral galaxy. That's the picture they showed in my science book for what a spiral galaxy was. That picture of Luke and Leia looking out into space, and that's what they show for spiral galaxy. And those were the 2 pictures I remember in my science book that I always looked at because they're from Star Wars. And I'll never forget that because I'm like, that's in my science book, and that is Star Wars. I'm like, that is so. I mean, how do you capture a kid's imagination? And I remember, like, do I know what a Star Wars or what a spiral galaxy is? Absolutely, it's that one right there outside the medical frigate in Empire Strikes Back. And binary sunset. I mean, do we have those? No, it was a star. And I think it was explaining that that's just the sun is just basically a regular star. They're showing 2 of them, but beside the point. But I mean, Star Wars is just all around us, right? We all have our own Star Wars stories. I would always dress up when I taught elementary school on Halloween. I'd always dress up as Darth Vader. I would go in as Darth because I'm tall, and I bought a cheap Darth Vader costume that looked kind of cool. It had the respirator with a button I'd push. Kids would always freak out, when they would come into school, and I'd come out of the class because I'd walk out of my class. Like I'd already be in my classroom, and then I would open the door and pop out as full on Darth Vader, freak them out every time. But kind of the word got out that, it was like legendary. Mr. Rahman's going to be Darth Vader on Halloween, and they'd get a kick out of that. So that's always fun. And the kids, they always do this. Like the kids all know the story, of Star Wars. It's just part of your childhood at this point. Everybody knows Star Wars. It's just part of being a kid, a part of being an American, part of being a part of the society, of being a part of planet Earth at this point. But it is, and I like that it's kind of a universal story, good versus evil. I mean, there's even almost like some religion to it. I mean, as I was watching it today, Yoda gives advice on like letting go, and when people pass away, you have to celebrate them transforming into the Force. It's kind of something that helps you accept death. There's so many layers to Star Wars. And I'm not even close to being, like the top layer of Disney or Star Wars fans. Like I don't watch the animated stuff. I don't watch the TV shows. I'm just original trilogy and the prequels, and I do watch 7, 8, and 9, but that's it. I watch the 9 movies. But I mean, I love them. but they're a part of my childhood. And I just think Star Wars is the greatest. And, I've been to Galaxy's Edge on May the 4th, and I see everybody that's out there in their robes with their awesome lightsabers and how they rally together. I don't tend, I don't know all the, other characters. I don't know Ahsoka. I don't know who she is. I don't know that stuff. But you know what? That I don't judge. I love that people do. I know Obi-Wan Kenobi. I know, the main characters, and that's my level of fandom, and that keeps me happy. But I love that everybody can have the joy in Star Wars because it's a good versus evil story. There's heroes, there's villains, and there's joy in it. And I think that's just what we need in the world. And I like that we get to have a day like today, May the 4th, where we can all kind of come together and just have fun with something like this. So I just want to give a couple of my memories. I've run some races. I've dressed up like Darth Vader. I've got to have fun times riding Rise of Resistance. I've got to just share it with my family. I took Paige one time to a midnight screening of Revenge of the Sith. I mean, she was like in 3rd grade. I don't know if it was Revenge of the Sith or Attack of the Clones. It was one of the prequels. Maybe it was Phantom Menace even. She was little and she was in elementary school. We went to a midnight showing and I'm like, should we take her out like to the midnight showing? And we're like, yeah, because this is just a rite of passage. I'm like, I just want to be able to take my kid to a midnight showing of Star Wars. And we got home like at 3 a.m, but it was worth it. It was worth, I just want to take my kid. We talk about it forever. And we did. We saw like Phantom Menace or Attack of the Clones or one of those. And I'll never forget it. It was awesome. We lined up back then. We lined up like around a theater and went. It was great. It was great. And just like Mohawk says, it's beautiful escapism. It is. It's great that you can always, if you need to escape, you can pop that in and there's spaceships, there's good versus evil, there's emperors, there's Jedi, there's something there and you can just like, you're in it. But it still gets me that it's a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And sometimes I think we just need to go there. So hopefully today's show, this is never anything serious. It's just something fun to give you something to say thank you for supporting the big show. I appreciate y'all so much. But hopefully, whatever you're doing today, you're having a great one. Hope you'll join us tonight for the live call-in show, and we can have some more fun. So join us tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. Have a good time. But until then, hope you have a great Sunday. So have a good one, and may the 4th be with you. See you guys. See you, Mohawk. Have a good one, buddy, over there in Scotland. I'm going to edit this baby up and get some lunch. See ya.